All set? Good afternoon. My name is Anthony Gallooni. I'm the Hampton District Attorney. I'd like to begin by thanking you for your presence here and also introducing the people who are here with me. To my left is First Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Fitzgerald. To my right is Dana Parsons, who's the Chief of the Domestic and Sexual Violence Unit in the Hampton District Attorney's Office. And to my far right is Christopher Wilcox, who's a captain with the Massachusetts State Police and the commander of the State Police Unit attached to the Hampton District Attorney's Office. Today, here on February 26th, I announced the establishment of a hotline set up for victims and families of victims who wish to report sexual abuse by members of the clergy in Hampden County. Beginning today, anyone who is a victim of clergy sexual abuse or concerned as a family member for a victim of clergy sexual abuse, I direct them to contact the Massachusetts State Police Detective Unit assigned to the Hampton District Attorney's Office at 413-800-2958. This hotline is created to allow victims to report directly to law enforcement any allegations of any sexual crimes committed by a member of the clergy in Hampden County. I've established this hotline to ensure that the rights of victims are preserved and any allegations can be properly vetted and investigated by law enforcement where appropriate. To that end, this hotline will be staffed by Massachusetts State Police detectives assigned to my office, the Hampton District Attorney's Office, all who are trained and experienced in dealing with complainants of sexual assault. Our goal is to answer these calls promptly and to initiate investigations where appropriate. The detectives will also make referrals to service providers, other law enforcement agencies, and the diocese as needed. Recently, the diocese published a 2-page special report on how the diocese has reacted to clergy sexual abuse. Specifically, it states the Roman Catholic Diocese of Springfield, which covers the 4 western counties of Massachusetts, fielded 15 reports of clergy sexual abuse in 2018. Other public statements by the diocese indicate, quote, all new cases have been forwarded to the relevant district attorneys. Specifically, the diocese stated in the Republican newspaper on February 14th that 15 cases were reported in 2018 and have been sent to the relevant district attorneys. Following a period of appropriate due diligence by my office in reviewing its files, we have not received referrals of any kind from the diocese that comport with its own public statements. The recent activity by the Springfield Diocese and other publications and communications with their congregants and news generated by the Vatican internationally have prompted an internal review of past reporting on clergy sexual abuse by this office and a prospective review by this office of what should be established to find best practices for sexual assault complaints by this office appropriate to the victims and appropriate for law enforcement. Given these reviews in the past several months, I am dissatisfied with the system in place and the consistency of reporting over the last many years. This hotline is a step to rectify and improve the reporting system to ensure that victims' claims are heard, addressed, and respected. We have and we will continue to work with our partners in law enforcement, including the Attorney General's Office of Massachusetts, the Northwest District Attorney's Office, and the Berkshire District Attorney's Office, who all fall within the Springfield Diocese. We will continue to assess our best efforts around this issue and work to ensure justice is being served, most importantly, for victims. Again, if a victim of clergy sexual abuse wishes to make a report, please contact the Massachusetts State Police Detective Unit assigned to the Hampton District Attorney's Office in this new clergy sexual abuse hotline at 413-800-2958. I quote Pope Francis in recent days in response to a refocus on this issue, who said, and again I quote, "The people watching expect not just simple and obvious condemnations, but efficient and concrete measures to be established." I think what this office is doing and what law enforcement is doing here is consistent with what the Pope has said, is consistent with what other officials have said about this crisis that has now been ongoing for decades. I have had the opportunity this morning to read an article in which responses by the diocese, specifically Mark DuPont, were issued, and frankly I was disheartened and disappointed by that commentary with respect to the establishment of this hotline. Which I think is to some degree consistent with how the Springfield Diocese has dealt with this issue in recent years. And frankly, it doesn't seem to acknowledge the severity and the depth of this issue And my hope is, as the Hampton District Attorney and representing law enforcement in this region, and considering the rights of victims and the seriousness of the allegations and the crimes that have occurred in past years, that we can continue to work cooperatively and constructively with the diocese on this issue. They are an essential and important partner in rectifying historic abuse and working forward to make sure that we have a system that is in place that addresses victims and their complaints and addresses the people committing these acts. The people committing these acts, that they are addressed appropriately by law enforcement. And again, this hotline is being established so victims who feel they have not been heard, victims who feel that their cases have not been addressed appropriately by the diocese or anyone else, can come directly to law enforcement, as they always can. And certainly sexual abuse and abuse against children is a societal issue, is a widespread issue, but I don't think there's any question that the concentration of the issue within the Catholic Church in past decades is unique and unlike anything we've seen. So again, this hotline is designed to address this and is really a first step in readdressing and reviewing the systems in place. And again, honoring victims, making sure their complaints are respected, and establishing a system that is consistent and transparent and effective to make sure that law enforcement is respected and criminal justice is respected as well. Happy to take any questions.
I spoke with Rebecca Kosky on Friday, and she told me that you called her on Friday and you discussed an intake she was trying to track down of her father's clergy sexual abuse case. Is it true that you told her you weren't able to find it? And is it also true that you told her that you believe many reports of clergy sexual abuse have not been filed? And if so, about how many do you think have not been filed with you?
I did in fact speak to Ms. Kosky. I had a very, I think, productive and friendly conversation with her. Much of what you said is accurate. I did tell her that the letter that was authored in 2011 by the diocese, we did not have record of receiving. And as I touched on, our due diligence has not fielded many of these reports, including the report that involves sexual abuse, alleged sexual abuse, in 2 different counties within the Springfield Diocese, one being Hampden.
What's the other one?
Hampshire County, which would be the Northwest District Attorney's Office. So I did tell her that we did not receive that letter, at least have record of receiving that letter in 2011, which predates my time as District Attorney, of course. But we did receive it in recent weeks directly from counsel for the diocese. So we were in receipt of it at the time, but again, didn't have record of receiving it back in 2011 or sometime appropriately afterwards.
And so how many cases do you think you haven't received?
At this point, it would be premature to specify, but as I said in my remarks very clearly, I think our review indicates that there is some discrepancy between what the diocese itself has reported to have received, and that I'm specifically referencing a pamphlet that they gave out to their congregants, in which by year it's listed as to the number of complaints that they received versus what we've been able to find in our office. And of course, we've gone through several administrations in the Hampton District Attorney's Office, and we've done our best to search through our files. But I confidently say before you members of the media and the public that we believe there are at least discrepancies, I think, to put it mildly. And we've had conversations with our law enforcement partners, and we're working to figure this out.
Do you think? Oh,
go ahead. Sorry.
Do you think that more people are going to be more likely to report because it's not reporting to the church that they attend? They're not reporting to the diocese. They're reporting to you guys.
I think it's an excellent question, and I think that's part of the genesis of creating this hotline. We want to ensure that victims can communicate directly with law enforcement, and it's not being filtered in any way, and they're not being discouraged by, essentially, as you say, having to report to the person against whom the complaint is being made or the organization where that person would work. So we're hopeful that this does encourage, I guess, folks to come forward who have been abused. There's the obvious disclaimer or caveat that there are statutes of limitations. There are, in fact, cases where priests will have been deceased, and going forward on criminal investigations and ultimately charges will not be possible. But this office prides itself on the work that we do for victims, specifically victims of sexual assault. I'm joined here today by Dana Parsons, who runs our domestic and sexual violence unit, which works on sexual violence against adults. Rachel Aramo runs our special victims units, which works on sexual violence and other kinds of abuse towards children. So we are in a position, I think, to provide resources and referrals to victims against whose cases we can't proceed on criminally. But there are other services that we want to provide, and if people do come forward, we'll do our best to do so with what we think is probably a better system, at least for now.
Well, what would you tell those people that I mean, I think the Hotline is great, but what would you tell those people that are scared, that have been scared for many years, to come forward now that they have this tool that's more confidential to them? What would be your message to those victims?
Be unafraid, be courageous, and speak to an investigator. Because this is directly to law enforcement, it's directly to detectives who are experienced in dealing with complainants, used to dealing with people who are victims of sexual abuse. And we hope that we can at least provide them services and potentially some redress for any crimes that have been committed against them. And we ensure that it'll be confidential and be handled directly by law enforcement and professionals who are in this business. And again, appropriate referrals from there will be made.
Is this the first type of hotline of this kind in the Commonwealth?
Michael, I can't speak to that. I don't know of any others, but I certainly don't want to say something that I'm not certain about in that regard. Frankly, it's something that we thought was important to do as soon as we possibly could. And again, our conversations with both the diocese and our law enforcement partners will continue, and our internal review about what else we can do to ensure that victims are being addressed and heard and respected will continue.